Gen Alpha is growing up in an age of artificial intelligence. But this generation already is reigniting a passion for spiritual truth. Today we bring you the research that shows how and why. Hello, I'm your host, Jean-Paul Barad, President of Focus on the Family Canada. Welcome to The Thriving Family, a Focus on the Family Canada podcast. This is a space where family, faith, and culture intersect. This season, we're talking about the very intersections of faith and culture, along with sound bites on entertainment, biblical theology, and contemporary issues. You'll hear intimate conversations with a variety of leaders, researchers, and entrepreneurs who have all generously taken the time to share their heart with you. Remember to check out each episode's notes for related resources and for how you can support the Thriving Family podcast. Today, it's my great pleasure to introduce Pamela Aramburu. Pamela serves as the Associate National Director at Alpha Ministries Canada. Her career reflects a strong focus on leadership in faith-based communications and technical operations. Pamela shares her heart as a mother, a wife, a professional, and an advocate for empowering the next generation to discover the truth of God's Word in a world of AI and noise. Today's interview is facilitated by Len DenBraber, Chief Operating Officer at Focus on the Family Canada. I hope you are inspired by this conversation as much as I was with Pamela.
It's great to have you on the Thriving Family podcast, Pam.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, we had you at our staff chapel this morning, and now we have a great opportunity to have a chat together.
It was such a wonderful time.
Yeah, it sure was. We appreciate some of the things that you shared with us, and I think we're going to get to that in our conversation a little bit later. But we're just getting to know each other as well, and so I would love for you to share with our audience just a little bit about who you are. Tell us about your family, and we'd just like to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, well, I was born in Mexico City, and I moved to Canada when I was 14 years old. I have two younger sisters, and my parents went to Australia, New Zealand, all over the world trying to decide where they wanted to move their family, and they picked an exciting place, Calgary. So that's where I grew up as a teenager, really got connected into a church there. I grew really deep in my faith and just discovered a relationship with Jesus there. And it was a youth pastor that really identified some giftings in me and called those out, invited me alongside of him to discover and to grow those. And I'm just so excited to see how God has just used my journey into ministry and to where we are today. So my career started in broadcasting. I did radio when I was 15 and 16 years old, and then did television, directed, produced, reported, you name it. And I was asked to do this really difficult story when I was a reporter, and I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. And so my producer at the time, he just said, well, you either go and you do the story or you don't come back because the competitor is going to do it. And so I just didn't come back. And at the time, my church had a full broadcast control room before every church was streaming, online.
Yeah.
And at that time, they were growing so much, and they were trying to hire someone to lead that portion of the ministry. And they said, Pam, we would really love for you to apply for this. So I thought, well, I'll do that for a year while I really figure out what I want to do with my life. I want to film documentaries. I want to change the world through the stories I'm going to tell. And it was in that first year working at this church that the Lord called me into ministry. And I realized that the best stories worth telling are stories of Jesus. And they're the stories that happen in and through that local church. And so then I was in pastoral ministry at that church, many different roles as I became a mom, got married before that. I was there for 17 years in pastoral ministry before God called me to Alpha Canada.
Okay. I'd like to rewind just a little bit and hear a little bit more about what that youth pastor spoke into your life. When he said, I see leadership in you, what did he mean by that? Were there specific gifts that he was calling out? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I always highlight that moment because I think that we all play such a key role in the lives of the young people around us. And our words carry such weight. And when we call out giftings in these young people, it profoundly impacts how they see themselves and what they lean into in their lives. So this youth pastor saw a gift of communication in me and a gift of leadership. And he was volunteering at our local Christian radio station filming the overnight show. So he said, Pam, why don't you come with me and see what I do? And I came and I saw and I loved it. So then he started giving me a couple of sessions, right, while he was there with me. And then eventually he went to the director and said, well, I think she has a gifting in this, and I'd like to give her my volunteer role if you're up for it. And I'm like, well, how old is she? She's 15. Well, and we worked some things out, and then he just gave me his volunteer shift. So he called out giftings in me. He trained me up. He empowered me, and he released me. And it was out of that I was able to more so seek the Lord and what he was inviting me into, because I was more confident in what my giftings were.
Well, that's so powerful. So that recognition really set a trajectory for you for what, like the next decade or so?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. And again, your role in your church sounds like it was very unique. There's not a lot of churches that would have a pastoral role like you've described. So maybe help us understand a little bit more what that all entailed.
Yeah, it's a big church, and it had a full broadcast control room. We were streaming our services, and we needed volunteers to do it. And so my role really was to discover, develop, and deploy volunteers. And so I did that for a couple of years, and every couple of years it seemed like my role would shift a little bit more and a little bit more. And I was in pastoral ministry in this church at Center Street Church in Calgary for 17 years.
Wow.
And such a wonderful, wonderful ministry, just to see that church through the growth and the blessing of God, you know, through COVID, difficult times, but also through incredible blessing.
Right.
You know, a couple mat leaves, probably 6 different role changes. But altogether, that's really where I've grown up, where I've really been able to grow in my leadership and in my giftings and skills. Also where I met my husband. He was one of my volunteers. It's quite the story.
Okay.
Where I've had my children, where my children have grown up. And so I just really love the local church and the role of the local church and flourishing families, right? Discipling families, strong families.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about having kids in the midst of all of this. I'm just curious, what impact did that have on, you know, just your ministry and to the extent you're comfortable, tell us about your kids, your husband.
Yeah. So I have 2 boys. They're ages 9 and 11. And when my husband and I got married, I was going through some health challenges. And I was told that I would likely never have children. And that was an interesting season for us. And I think part of me wondered if that was just God's plan for our family, because I really loved to work. And I really felt called into ministry. And long story short, God ends up gifting us with these 2 wonderful children. And having them was quite the journey and quite the process for me personally. You know, I get pregnant with my first. It's a surprise. It was unexpected. We were likely never to have children.
Right.
And he comes along. His name is Fernando. He's named after my dad and just my Latin heritage. And I go on maternity leave. And at the time, it was kind of assumed that I wouldn't be coming back to work. And I remember my husband and I talking about it and praying about it and hearing so clearly from the Lord that he was still calling me into ministry. And so we thought, well, Lord, if you're calling me into ministry, what does that mean? How are we going to care for this child? How are we going to raise this child? And the years after that were just these beautiful moments of the Lord providing. Because when we lean into his calling in our lives, he provides everything that we need.
Right.
And there's this incredible Christian Spanish-speaking day home, you know, in our community that the Lord provided. And we've always had an incredible village around us that has come alongside of us and helped us. And it's, I believe, because we have given God our yes and sought him, that he's just provided everything that we've needed to be able to serve him in ministry in the ways that we have. And so now, even now, as I'm here in BC, my home is in Calgary. My kids know exactly what I'm doing today. They prayed for me today. And they're just as part of the mission of what I am doing as I am. They're just a part of it in a different way. And it's our whole family that is just leaning in on mission together. And so while in the early years, it was hard to juggle motherhood and ministry, it really just became about following God and what he's leading us to do. And he has provided year after year, every step of the way, everything that we have needed as we've given him our yes.
I'm curious to hear a little bit more just of the sort of the mechanics of that. Like, having pastored myself back in the day, I know that there are unique demands and it's not a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 kind of job. And it often is a whole family endeavor, even though your spouse and certainly your kids aren't getting paid. So I'm curious to know a little bit more like the mechanics, like how did that all work? How did you do that with little kids? And were you just dragging them out to the church for every single event or?
I mean, Len, you should see our calendar. Like our life just runs on our, family calendar. There's a few different practical things that we have done, but I think underneath all of those is just some values. And it was just a value of like, when are we Sabbathing as a family? What is our time together? And then what is mommy working? And what is our ministry together? And there's differences within all of those. There's times when we serve together as a family and mommy's not working. And then there was times mommy was working, right? And they weren't necessarily there for that. So I think it was just being very intentional with what they were there for. And my husband and I have always made sure that the things that they have to be there for, quote unquote, are the things they have chosen to be there for.
Right.
The things where they want to serve. So my youngest, he loves to be on camera at church.
Oh, okay.
That's he's the youngest ever camera operator that we have had. And he just loves that.
Train them up while they're young.
Exactly. But my oldest, right, he just loves to help out running tech in children's ministries. And that is their way of living into the ministry. But I've done my very best not to say, well, I need you to do this for X, Y, Z. It's just how are you serving God? And what has God led you to serve him in? And this is how mommy is doing that. And this is the support that I need, right? And I think very practically, in all honesty, it can be very challenging in a lot of seasons because you're not in the home as much, or especially on the weekends. The kids are at school Monday to Friday. My husband was working Monday to Friday, and I was working on weekends. Our church had 4 services every weekend. And we just needed to be incredibly strategic and timed with our plans. So we would have Sunday family meetings and look at the calendar for the week, make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're good to go, making sure that we plan meals well in advance, making sure that we get the help that we need in the home to help offload certain things, right? And then what is the Lord inviting my husband to do? So for example, my husband took 6 months of paternity leave with our first, and we shared that together, and it was really beautiful. So I think it's just this continuous journey, not just letting life happen to you, but being intentional week by week, month by month. And my husband and I have always tried to check in with each other at certain points to see how is it feeling, how is it going, and then our Sunday meetings, and then those checkpoints, throughout the week where we can raise the flag and say, beige flag here, this isn't quite working.
Right. Yeah.
Or red, this isn't working too well with our family. But even now, with my role at Alpha, I travel quite a bit, and our family is thriving. The first question I get is, well, how's your family doing? Well, what about your kids? Well, I'm saying yes to the Lord's calling on my life, and he is providing everything that we need for this season.
Amazing.
And we're all in this together. We really are. Now, I realize that as I say all of this, I might sound like it's all rosy and peachy, and it isn't. But I really do think it's just a day-by-day choice and taking those moments to really check in with one another and be intentional with one another. And maybe the thing you need to know is that my husband and I are just like very strategic and very intense people. So our calendar's set for the year. We're like way ahead of the game. And I think that helps us, right? Yeah. And the thing we need to work on is actually stepping away from the calendar and just enjoying and being present more so in the moment. So different seasons need different things from us. And we're just always ensuring that we know what each season requires from us.
Yeah, and I hope our audience has heard that there's intentionality, there's strategy, there's communication, and an acknowledgement of the season that you're in.
Yeah.
So some things are more or less easy depending on the season you find yourself in, and so I think all of those things are really important elements, as you've shared with us. So you've mentioned that you are with Alpha.
Yeah.
You're the Associate National Director for Alpha. I would imagine that most people in our audience knows about Alpha, but can you just give us the quick thumbnail sketch of what Alpha is?
Yeah, I'd love to. At Alpha, we just really love to serve the local church in its mission to help introduce people to Jesus. So we have an Alpha program. It's, runs 10 to 12 weeks, and it's just creating a safe place for people from different faith backgrounds or no faith at all to discover the basics of the Christian faith, and along the way encounter Jesus and discover faith for themselves. So we have the Alpha Youth Series and the Alpha Series, and it's run in churches, in pubs, in schools, in homes, in community centers. And it's just people, churches, pastors, I just want to share the good news of Jesus with those that are curious about faith and don't yet have faith. So my first ever Alpha that I run, I'll never forget it. I'm sitting at this table, and there's a Muslim couple that's there because they want to learn more about my Jesus. There was an atheist that was here to prove why he would never believe in Christianity. And then there was a young couple about to get married. She had grown up in the church, fell away from the faith. He had no faith background, and they were trying to decide if they got married in the church or not.
Wow.
All of them, just this beautiful conversation over a meal as we would get to know each other. We watch a video with a basic Christian teaching, and then we discuss the video, and they're allowed to disagree, to ask all kinds of different questions, whatever it may be. And then we listen to one another, right? And in that process, as we learn, discuss, unpack, the Holy Spirit is at work and does a really beautiful thing, and people come to know Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, Alpha is such an amazing ministry. And again, it's a global ministry. And I've been privileged to lead some Alpha courses myself over the years, and they're always exciting because of what you've just described. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And the Lord's always at work. It's really an extraordinary thing to be part of.
And in what spaces and places in today and day do you gather around food, talk about your different opinions?
Yes. Civil dialogue.
Without getting canceled or without offending people, right?
Yeah.
Really listen to one another. And just go on a journey together, these complete strangers that end up being great friends at the end, because you really get to know one another.
Yeah. And in that conversation, the Lord always is present and becomes the focal point of the conversation. And as Scripture says, people are drawn to him, and it's such a beautiful and natural way for people to come to faith in Jesus and then follow him.
That's right.
I love Alpha. Alpha's just absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what does the Associate National Director for Alpha do?
We have such an incredible team, Len, and I'm just so honored to serve alongside of them as we serve the local church in Canada. So we're spread all across the country. Our national offices is in Vancouver. And my job really is just to bring that team together as we focus on our mission and what the Lord has called us to do. And we're just serving him as he leads. And it's just been remarkable to see how many alphas are taking place, how many people are discovering or restoring a relationship with Jesus. You know, last year there was over 120,000 Canadians that went on an alpha.
Wow.
There's over 40,000 volunteers. There's over 40,000 people that began or restored a relationship with Jesus. Amazing. So it's just this incredible move of God that we just get to be a part of.
Amazing. So as a national ministry, you have a national perspective.
Yeah.
And I know that you are very engaged at the local church level, which again is, I think, one of the strengths of the Alpha ministry. So you have a perspective, I think, maybe that that we would really benefit from. And you shared some things with our chapel this morning about the work of God across our nation, and particularly among those who are younger.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love that you shared, Pam, is that you talked to us about what God is doing, and not looking at that from a perspective of fear. You know, that we're afraid about the way that faith is going, or the way the nation is going, or the way that our young people are, you know, being led, but instead with great hope.
Yeah.
And so I wondered if you could just share with us a little bit about what Alpha is seeing, especially among the youth across the nation.
We're seeing a great move of God. We're seeing hope. We're seeing a curiosity towards faith. Alpha's 26 years old in Canada, and we would be as bold as to say we haven't seen this in our lifetime. You know, I'm a millennial. I grew up afraid to share my faith because I was being offensive. It had to be private. You would get canceled if you did that. And it's different now. It's different now. You know, my oldest, he just started junior high this year. And Len, I have cringed at the things that he is hearing, seeing, and learning in school. And I, this fall, really wrestled through it. How do we have these conversations with him? How can I protect him from this? Do we need to change schools? Is it always going to be like this? Should I homeschool? You know, and as I talked about in seasons and just following the Lord, well, in prayer, the Lord revealed that this is a school for him. And as I'm praying for him, I'm starting to hear stories from all across the country of churches and just what God is doing in our country, and how churches are perceiving an increase in spiritual curiosity in their communities, and how they're seeing younger people come to church. And then at the same time, we start hearing stories of teenagers running Alpha for their high schools, and their teachers are allowing them to. These are public high schools. And there isn't just 10 or 20 children showing up, but in some cases, over 100 students are showing up to learn about Jesus. And we really wanted to get more information. And so we say at Alpha that we're spirit-led but data-driven. And so what is this next generation like? They're called Generation Alpha. They're between the ages of 1 and 15. What are they like? And
by the way, sorry to interrupt you. I noted this morning when you said Generation Alpha, I thought, oh, that's apropos. And let's pray that that is also prophetic.
Yeah, we didn't name them. It comes out of McCrindle research, right? But I hope so too. It's quite beautiful. But I think that this generation, what we're learning through this research, we just released the report with One Hope International, and it reveals hope for the future.
So share some of that hope with us.
Yeah. So
and again, for those of you listening, I'm a bit of a data head. I love information. So I'm going to apologize in advance because there's going to be some statistics, but again, I think they are so telling and so encouraging. So share some of that hope with us.
I think that the hope is that they're spiritually curious. You know, 68%, so like 2/3 of Canadian preteens, so Canadian 11, 12, and 13-year-olds, they say that their faith, their beliefs, their religion or spiritual journey is an important part of their identity. So then they're not asking, is God real? They're asking, is God good, and is it your God? They already fundamentally believe the spirituality is an important part of their identity. Isn't that remarkable?
That is
For
amazing.
generations,
Yeah.
we've told young people to look within themselves to find their true identity. And I think our children has seen that has not worked out for us. And they're reaching outside and beyond themselves. And I think what has led them towards the spiritual curiosity starts with a stat that is actually incredibly discouraging. And that's the fact that the average Canadian preteen is on screens between 3 and 4 hours a day. And that's after school. So our children, that's a preteen.
Yeah.
After school, on screens for that amount of time. And if you really think about it, these teens are being digitally discipled by algorithms and influencers far more than they're talking to us or by the church. Now, the very interesting part about that is that I think that because they're on screen so much, they're the first ever generation to grow up with artificial intelligence. So they're growing up in a culture that is post-truth, but also single truth. I think it's post-truth because they actually don't know what they're looking at online is true. Was this created by AI? Is this true, Mom? Do you think this was real or do you think this was created? But at the same time, that same AI gives them a single concise answer to any question they would ever have. And why question it? A supercomputer gave me this great answer. And so we've given them unlimited information before they've been able to form wisdom.
Right.
And we've given them access to the world's pain, war, sickness and illness and news far before they find their place in the world.
Right.
And I think that has left them searching, trying to make sense of it all. And it has awakened the spiritual curiosity in them. And the research is showing us that they're asking life's biggest questions earlier than they ever have. And you know where they're turning with those questions? This is very encouraging to me.
Tell us. Yeah.
They're turning to their families.
Wow.
So we found that 83% of these preteens go to their family first for questions about faith, about right and wrong. And most of these preteens also have different trusted adults in their life that they can go to. And what this is showing us is that they know that the internet and the digital world is a place to go to be entertained, but it isn't where you go to find wisdom, to find mentorship, to find guidance. You go to your family, you go to your grandparents, you go to your family first. And I think that points towards this beautiful moment and opportunity for us for intergenerational ministry that we haven't seen before. All of us together in this together because they're looking to us. They don't just want a youth leader that's a couple years older than them. They want that older, wiser person that they can process and unpack things with in a very real way. And the research, it really, really points towards that. Now, very interestingly, out of the non-Christian preteens that were surveyed, 40% of them said that they would go to church if a friend invited them. Isn't that remarkable?
You know, what you're saying is so amazing. I was just thinking too that, you know, for those who maybe don't have young children anymore and don't have teenagers or grandkids or whatever, you still have an opportunity to be that trusted adult.
Absolutely.
Who can, in a very meaningful and appropriate way, influence those preteens. Like what a ministry. And as you said, an opportunity for intergenerational ministry.
Yes.
And I think for too long, you know, we have separated the older and the younger and the middle-aged and all of that and tried to pigeonhole them. And instead what I hear you saying is there's really an opportunity for all of us to participate in this thing that God is doing.
Yeah. You know, Len, there's 4.4 million teenagers in Canada across 5,000 high schools. And I believe we all are being invited to pray for them first and foremost. And that takes all of us.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that God wants to use all of us. We know he doesn't need any of us to do the work that he's doing. But he wants to use all of us. Yeah. And it begins in prayer. Yeah. But then it also requires a different step. Like, who is that kid in your community that you drive by that's playing outside? Where is that school that you drive by? Can you pause and can you pray for that school? What about your youth group? Because I believe that this move of God amongst this emerging generation, it isn't just for the youth group to manage and to lean into. But can you imagine if the whole church leans into that?
Yeah.
If the whole family leans into that, then what would happen? Could it just be that 4.4 million teenagers could have the opportunity to explore Jesus when they're spiritually curious?
Yeah.
And then what will that mean for our country? I also believe that we are here today because our great-grandparents, our grandparents, and our parents prayed. They prayed. They prayed for this moment that we get to live in. This may just be the most hope-filled moment that the church in Canada has seen in our lifetimes.
Wow.
But it has come because of answered prayer and generations of prayer. So let's continue in prayer. And let's follow the Lord's leading in the ways that he's asking us to partner with him with what he's doing in the rising generation.
You know, as an aside, that's one thing I've always admired and loved about Alpha is that it is built on a foundation of prayer. And having been to the leadership conference in London and having been exposed, you know, in other elements to Alpha over the years, I know for a fact that it's built on this idea that nothing can really happen or thrive, you know, without the foundation of prayer. So I love that about Alpha, and I love the affirmation, you know, that you've shared in terms of the power of prayer that has an intergenerational effect. You've got some other stats that you want to share with us?
Yeah, you know, this one was very interesting. It's actually incredibly heartbreaking in one way. But in another way, it's incredibly encouraging, and that's just mental health. So the research reveals that more than 90% of preteens struggle with mental health challenges.
Wow.
So more than 90% of the children sitting around our dinner tables that we drive by in our community, sitting in our churches, are struggling with mental health challenges. And I just think that's incredibly heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But very interestingly is that those that have faith, those that pray, they have a significantly higher hope. They feel like they belong somewhere. And statistics around depression, they decrease significantly. And I just think it's this beautiful moment that just shows us the role of faith and discipleship and just helping the struggle that these preteens are going through as they grapple with mental health. So I just think it's something for us to look at within our families and in our communities. Is number one, to know that these preteens are really struggling with their mental health, but also to know that spiritual formation plays a beautiful role in just helping them through that. And I think that's an incredible opportunity for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to know, are these statistics available online? Can others look at this stuff?
Yes. Yeah. It's just on our website at alphacanada.org. It's free for everyone. And I'll leave you with this final one.
Okay, sure.
Did you know that 79% of Christian preteens feel confident sharing their faith?
That is so extraordinary.
Isn't it?
Yes.
And let me share with you a story. Nick in Halifax, he wanted to put on Alpha for his high school. He went to his teacher and his teacher said no. So he went to his youth pastor. He was kind of grumbling about it. His youth pastor said, why don't you pray about it? So he prayed about it for a very long time. He took 2 days to pray about it.
For a kid, that's a long time, I suppose.
I suppose. He went back to his youth pastor and said, okay, I think I'm supposed to go back. His youth pastor's like, are you sure you don't need to pray longer? So he goes back to his school and the teacher says yes. And there was a kind of like a fair with all the clubs. So he put up a booth for Alpha. He thought maybe like 25 people will come. There was 210 people that were part of that Alpha. Yeah. And then Noella is a student in Calgary that I met recently. And at Alpha, we really do believe that this all starts in prayer. So we've launched Made for This. and it's a Canadian invitation towards prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, thousands of schools that are being prayed for. And Noella heard there was a church that was praying for her school. And so she thought, well, maybe I should pray for my school too. And she starts praying for her school. And then a couple of days later, she's like, I wonder if anyone else in my school wants to pray for the school. And so she launches this Christian club, and 24 people show up to pray with her for her school. And now that group has felt led to start an Alpha in their school. So these preteens, they're brave, they're courageous, and they want to share their faith. Their peers, their families, their sports teams, their communities, their siblings, they want to hear about Jesus. So it's this beautiful moment where we get to come alongside of them, pray for them, encourage them, empower them, maybe bring pizza, whatever that may look like. But it's just incredibly encouraging to see their bravery.
That's so amazing. It's so encouraging. So if people want to learn more about Alpha, I know you have a Youth Alpha series, series that you've just released.
Yeah, I just released this year, and it's really made by youth for youth. So you may not enjoy it as much, Len, but the youth are loving it. And we also have just our regular Alpha film series, and we have a new one that's going to be out early in 2027 that we're very excited about.
Okay. I'm old enough to remember the days where we ran Alpha with the VHS tapes.
What?
Yes, I'm that old.
Wow.
So, but I'd probably love the new stuff too.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would. So that's so encouraging. And again, we've talked a lot about young people. We talked a lot about youth. But to be clear for those who are listening, Alpha's available for adults, available for teens.
We have Alpha in the Chinese context. We have Alpha in prisons. We have Alpha in every space and place. And it's just these beautiful stories. We have Alphas that are being run in care homes for, we have Alphas that are being run for seniors. We have Alphas that are being run for young adults. It really just is, if you have people in your life that don't yet know Jesus and they're curious about your faith, they're people of peace in your life that listen to you share, what God is doing in your life. And invite them on an Alpha and just help them discover the basics of your Christian faith. And then along the journey, they'll discover Jesus.
Yeah, amazing. Pam, I want to give you the last word. So is there something that you'd just love to share with our audience today?
We've talked a lot about families and different generations. And we've talked a lot about youth, but we haven't spoken to youth. And so if there's a young person that is listening to this right now, I would want them to know that we believe in them, that they were born for such a unique time as this, and that God is doing something so unique within their generation, that we're praying for them, and we're supporting them and encouraging them. And I just really, really want to encourage them to keep going and to keep their eyes focused on God. So may we all do that with the young people in our lives. And maybe, just maybe, out of this conversation, we can all think of a young person in our life that we can start to pray for, and we can start to encourage in a new way, knowing what God is doing in this generation.
Amen and amen. Thank you for joining us today, Pam.
Thank you for having me.
Conversation.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of The Thriving Family, a podcast from Focus on the Family Canada. If you like this episode, please leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts, and be sure to subscribe. If you feel led, you can make a donation to focusonthefamily.ca/podcast giving, or find the link in the episode notes. This episode is available ad-free because of the generosity of our donors. Every gift helps the Thriving Family reach more people with hope, support, and encouragement. If you wish to talk about this further, or if it brought up something that you would like to talk through, you can have a free one-time consultation with one of our registered counselors at Focus on the Family Canada over the phone. Give us a call at 1-800-661-9800 to request a consult. It's our gift to you. Most importantly, remember that we are here for you and your family.